Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Good morning. I'm Stephanie Schmidt, Director for Partnership with Ashoka Africa, calling from a hot and sunny Johannesburg in South Africa today, and really thrilled to have you join the session. Today, it's about doing good. It's not about doing good or doing business. It's about good business. So this is the topic of our session today. And I'm really thrilled that you could join the Changemaker Summit, and especially this session that's very connected to the overall topic of the Changemaker Summit. So it's about our collective search for scaling social impact in the world, for changing systems, and for activating and inspiring sort of many changemakers around the world. So this session is part of a series of several sessions focused on changemaker companies and powered by Making More Health, the partnership that Ashoka has in collaboration with Boehringer Ingelheim. So for those who didn't have the chance to connect yesterday, I really encourage you to check actually the recording of those sessions and those great conversations. And today, the topic that we want to explore together is how to harness the power of business to scale up social impact and sort of this huge potential. So there's one statistic that you may have heard of, 25 giant companies today are bigger than countries, and overall the business sector represents a huge, huge power in the world. So we want to explore sort of how can corporate put social innovation at the core of their business, at the core of their strategy. How can business and social entrepreneurs join forces and achieve more social impact together in a way that sort of leverages the unique and the very distinct asset that they all bring to the table, and basically sort of what kind of magic happens when business and social meet, and when those traditional silos between non-profit and for-profit worlds fall down. So having said this, sort of breaking those silos is not a straight process. So this is not something that happened from one day to another, and it's very much of a journey and a transformation process. So we will hear from different companies, different social entrepreneurs about this journey. And we want also to make it specific and concrete for those social entrepreneurs and companies in the room who are eager to get some lessons and some specific how-tos from our panelists. So I'm really thrilled to have a very rich panel with 6 incredible speakers, covering sort of different partnerships, different geographies, different sectors, and different stage of development of what we call those co-creation partnerships. So the first duet, if I can say so, because we have actually the privilege of having the perspective of the business and the perspective of the social entrepreneur, is about providing access to healthcare in Africa. And I'm glad to introduce Annette Jung, from Philips. So Annette is the head of Philips Capital in Western Europe and in Africa. And she's also volunteer with Philips Foundation core team. Actually, interestingly enough, you'll see that most of our panelists have navigated between the business sector and the social sector and have experienced actually the two sectors. The social entrepreneur partnering with Philips is Joost van Engen, founder of Healthy Entrepreneurs, Ashoka Fellow, and connecting from Uganda. So a few of us, so that's really a sort of a global panel connecting from different countries. So we hope that technology stays with us and plays with us today. The second duet is about ocean conservation, big important topic. And I'm glad to introduce Osha Feld. So Osha is manager for IKEA social entrepreneurship within IKEA Inter-IKEA Group. And the social entrepreneur partnering with IKEA is Wietse van den Berg, CEO of Sea Ranger Service, Ashoka Fellow, connecting from the Netherlands. An interesting fact that Wietse was sharing is that he's trained as a violin maker and he's currently working on a cello, which sounded to me a wonderful hobby in the midst of a lockdown. And the third duet is about creating youth employment and market access in Africa. And I'm glad to welcome Lisa Gibbis, Senior Vice President and Global Corporate Communication Directors at Nestlé, joining us early morning from the US, as well as Vital Sunuvu, social entrepreneur from Africa, and founder of Exportunity Group that's enabling African economies as well as fighting unemployment. So Vital is joining us from Cotonou, Benin today. So before I start, I would like to encourage all of you to participate in the conversation. You have access to a chat. So if you want to ask questions, if you want to react to what our panelists are sharing, please do so through the chat. So my wonderful colleague, Danny and Claire, who are coordinating the session, will be sort of looking at your questions through the chat and sharing with me and the panelists some of your questions. So feel free to already introduce yourself to the chat, through the chat. We'd love to know who you are, where you are connecting from today, and maybe, what state of mind are you entering the session today? What's the adjective that would characterize you? So without further ado, let's get started. I'd like to start with the first round of questions for the social entrepreneurs in our virtual room. Asking them maybe to introduce themselves, who are you as a social entrepreneur? What's your social mission? And why this partnership with the business? What is this partnership, this co-creation with the business enabling you to achieve? And things that you may not have achieved yourself alone. So Joost, would you like to start us with the conversation?
Well, of course. Thank you so much. My name is Joost van Engen. I'm Dutch origin, but based in Uganda. Founder of Healthy Entrepreneurs, a social enterprise organizing last mile service delivery in remote and hard to reach areas in Africa. And just to give you a brief insight, let me share briefly my screen. So you can see this is the work of Healthy Entrepreneurs. We're operating with more than 5,000 community health entrepreneurs in hard to reach and remote areas, offering access to health education, offering access to health commodities, and access to telehealth services. We have a model designed where we mobilize entrepreneurs to make their investment, enabling them to serve their community. And we, as Healthy Entrepreneurs, facilitate them. We facilitate them with providing them training, we provide them products provided on credit, and we provided them access to health education. And now we have e-commerce solutions. And together with Philips, we continue developing our model by also offering telehealth solutions. Just a brief insight. We are doing at the moment, through our entrepreneurs, observations, screenings on the spot. For example, hypertension and, for example, blood sugar for diabetes. The facts are registered in our system, and from the system, it gets to our doctor at a distance. And this whole telehealth service solution we have developed together with our partner Philips. And I think it has been very, very interesting because we as an organization started in the supply chain of essential health commodities. We extended to health education. And now together with our partner Philips, we have developed a complete new package and service. We have designed it together. We got all the support from technical point of view, from an implementation point of view, and in the end also from investment point of view, how to develop those services and to make us as a business providing additional value-added services in our communities to strengthen our business at the same time to also improve the impact. And I, as a person, am very grateful to the work. I'm sorry, I hope it works now. The work of Philips as a partner. And I think as an organization, we have grown a lot. We have been participating in globalizer programs where we got strategic directions. We have been participating in an operation where they were thinking with us how to get us investable. And we also work together in additional funding to actually further expand our network. Because Philips is one of our investors that helps us to widely expand our network from the 5,000 today to more than 25,000 in the next 3 years. So I'm very grateful and very happy to be and present proudly about our partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, Joost. That's indeed sound like a very natural partnership about sort of access to healthcare and sort of bridging what you are doing as a social entrepreneur in terms of last mile and sort of access to medical equipment and services. So let's hear maybe from Peter.
Sure. I will also.
Let's do a round of.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. So my name is Wietse van der Werf. I'm an Ashoka Fellow from the Netherlands, and I run the Sea Ranger service. We're a social enterprise started in 2016, focused entirely on ocean protection. While many of us have heard of ocean pollution and perhaps overfishing, the problem actually is that while there is increasing legislation, the sort of boots on the ground to really protect, manage, and restore that ocean, literally the ships and the people to do that, that is at the moment pretty much too expensive for most governments, and the infrastructure lacks to really properly manage and restore this ocean environment. So what we have essentially done is we established a program whereby we've done two things. One is a social innovation. We started training young people, unemployed people from coastal communities as sea rangers, essentially training them, giving them the skills to work out at sea, to manage and restore ocean areas. And it's for them also a step up towards a maritime career. So when they work with us for 1 year, they then are ready to work for other maritime companies. We initially trained them in a boot camp. So there's a lot of physical training, a lot of course, sailing training involved as well. And that's also run by veterans from the Navy. So politically working in this way means that there's a very strong social impact component. And actually the majority of people signing up for this are young women. So the fact that we're training them for a maritime industry where, of course, there's still a lot to be done to make that a safe working environment for women. It's something we find very encouraging. And essentially that social impact is then separately, we have a technical impact, and that is that we at the moment run the only sailing ship, so powered by wind, that is certified as a workship, an offshore workship, which means we can do all types of contracted work, all types of research that normally would be very expensive and polluting, and we can do it more cheaply, essentially. And ultimately, that will also focus on biodiversity restoration. So we literally are building the infrastructure, the ships and the people in order to restore seagrass, in order to essentially restore the biodiversity in our seas. I think a really important aspect of that as well is when we talk about climate, we talk about environmental conservation, it's about giving it a human face, moving beyond perhaps more abstract statistics, and really making sure young people are at the forefront of building that sustainable future. Lastly, we started working with IKEA as part of the Globalizer program with Ashoka, I think now 1.5 years ago. There's also a photo of the IKEA CEO visiting us on our ship together with Osa and others from the IKEA team. And simply put, IKEA has enabled us to develop a franchising model to, for the first time, as far as we're aware, replicate a conservation solution to other parts of the world. So essentially seeing our ship similar to an IKEA store and ensuring that the standardization we've developed can be replicated in other parts of the world. That is the specific expertise that we have been able to bring forward thanks to the amazing support that we've received from IKEA.
Thank you, Wietse. It's always fascinating to go from healthcare to ocean conservation. And now let's continue our journey. Vital, would you like to share a little bit of your trajectory as a social entrepreneur and what you do with Nestlé? Oh, Vital, you are on mute. Can you unmute yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Vital Sonovu. I'm the founder of Opportunity. We are a fintech startup from Africa that's focused on helping base of the pyramid businesses get access to market. We do so by using technology. The three issues that we focus on tackling as a business is payment, logistics, and supply chain management. It is even more relevant in these times of COVID-19. After college, it was clear for me that I couldn't find a job, and it is the same reality for millions of young people across the continent today. And trying to tackle that issue, we found that Nestle will be the best partner for us as a company working in Africa for several decades, working with the informal sector. So when we had the opportunity to work with Nestle, it was a chance to explore new routes to market to reach base of the pyramid customers. And when at the same time creating impact and jobs for young people in terms of entrepreneurship jobs as well. So Our co-creation with Nestle happened with Nestle Professional in Côte d'Ivoire, in Abidjan, where we had the opportunity to have an access to hundreds of local restaurants and distributors of Nestle products. We could have not had the opportunity to understand the realities of that market without, a partner like Nestle, which has experience. So we were given an office, we were given a team, and a budget to actually go on the field and try to get women from the market who have not used other apps than WhatsApp or maybe Facebook sometimes, try to get them to use an app that could help them better manage their businesses and also, and also get access to payment. So that's what we have worked on with Nestle Professional. It lasted 3 fantastic months. And what I can say about that is that it has enabled us to invent new solutions. They were purely designed with the users. For example, placing a Nestle Professional product in Abidjan, it just happened with the scan of a QR code. And the beauty of that is that as a company, as a startup, we are able to also benefit from it while collaborating with a company that has experience, just like Nestle. So yeah, that's what I can say as an introduction of what we have done. I'll be happy to share a bit more about it.
Thank you, Vital. Very interesting. We'll dive more into sort of the specific how-tos a bit later. And now I'd like to actually turn towards our corporate panelists in the room and sort of turn the question also to them, sort of the mirror question. Sort of why is this partnership with the social entrepreneur and with Ashoka sort of relevant to your company? What have you been able to achieve? You may be at different stages of development, but what does it mean for you and for your company? So I'd like to share her experience with co-creation. Annette, can you hear me?
Yes. Hello, good day, everyone. So why is co-creation relevant for us? Our company's purpose is to improve people's health and well-being, and we have also put a specific target to that, which includes to improve the life of 400 million people per year in underserved communities by 2030. So primary healthcare delivery models are a key element for us in order to achieve that. And here we work together with social entrepreneurs in that space, social entrepreneurs like Joost. And what we can learn from them and the insights we can gain from them is really about they are on the ground, they know the local setting. They have often very, not only innovative, but often really disruptive solutions, which is also very important for us to learn from. And they often also know what is not working based on the journey they have also gone through. If we look at the partnership with Ashoka and how we have further shaped it, so initially we engaged what is called a globalizer, which is, if I may say so, let's say more a one-directional way in supporting the fellows. We said, I think we should go deeper. There is more in it for us also as a company when we engage more deeply with the social entrepreneurs rather than giving one-directional advice or feedback. And that's where we created something which we called with Ashoka collaborative action, where we said, okay, let's select a few number of social entrepreneurs and let's tackle a specific challenge either the social entrepreneur has or the company has, and see how we can jointly work on that. And to give two very specific examples. So one, Joost was already referring to where we brought certain health check tools into the rural areas by using the infrastructure and the last mile solution of Joost. So we could test things there which we could not have been able to test using our own Philips infrastructure. A second example, which I personally also like very much, is that we have invited social entrepreneurs to challenge our primary healthcare delivery models. We call that a reverse mentoring. So it was the social entrepreneurs sharing what they feel is good in our approach, experience they had why certain things are not working. So that was really a very, very valuable exercise. And we also look in really, in the measurement and to see, okay, defining KPIs to say, okay, when do we then also consider that this collaborative action is successful for the social entrepreneur and for us as a company. So we have very specific KPIs around the individual projects, and they vary per projects, and they are all very specific. But that is also where we then see whether we have achieved the common targets we have set, or if not, why not. So also all these learnings are very important and insightful for us as a company. And I must also say for me as a person, very much so. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette. Very interesting. I mean, as you say, from an individual and an organizational point of view, and what you mentioned between transitioning from a one-way relationship with the social entrepreneur to a two-way one. So we'll come back to this in a little bit. But before that, I'd like to turn to Åsa. Åsa, I would love also your perspective on this co-creation process with social entrepreneurs.
Thank you. Yes, as a corporate that has as ambition to become circular by 2030, which means both people, planet, and society positive, we believe co-creation is key. It's not something anyone can manage on their own. So we all need to find new ways of working together, of creating the new future together. So for us, when it comes to social innovation, we've actually even created a special legal entity that is a hybrid between philanthropy and business, a social enterprise of our own, where we can support social entrepreneurs. And we focus on the ones that work on the livelihood, equality, and inclusion aspect with people who are vulnerable and marginalized. And as you heard from Wietse here, he combines that work. I mean, that was the entry point to our partnership. But of course, he combines that with ocean conservation, sailing instead of fossil fuel boats, and a lot of other aspects of sustainability. So even though our entry point is always the livelihoods aspect, we see that so many social entrepreneurs work in a holistic manner. So it also addresses many of the other things that we want to learn and test and innovate. So I think it's vital. It has been vital for us to co-create this accelerator that we call DELA together with Ashoka. I think for us, it was really important that we were standing in the same values and that we had the same vision. So we created a joint theory of change that actually matches into the goals and ambitions of our social entrepreneurship entity. And so based on this, we created a way to share knowledge, both, I mean, knowledge from our organization, but foremost also knowledge from our co-workers. So they, as you heard from Wietse, the coaches that he has worked with has been very engaged. And I think it also reversed a little bit like Annette was speaking about. There has been so much learnings, both from the co-worker perspective, getting out of your own bubble, seeing a new reality, working with people who are entrepreneurial, and also to see new approaches and also maybe shift your mindset a little bit and bring that back into your everyday life in the organization, that creates a lot of value. And also it's a manifestation of one of our core values, which is entrepreneurship of the many. So over the last years, we, through different programs with intermediaries and also direct business relationships in some cases, we have worked with about 100 social entrepreneurs now and have a social impact of about 1.6 million people.
Wow, thanks. Thanks. Those are also very, very interesting, and lots of how-tos that you've shared already. Glad to hear that basically co-creation is vital. So that's not only a nice to have, but something that's actually key to help a company like IKEA reach its very ambitious goal for 2030. So now turning over to you, Lisa, and also inviting you to share your perspective on co-creation.
Great. First of all, thank you for inviting me to be a part of this today. It's an honor, and it's really one of my favorite topics. I actually have reflected a bit on the title of this session and this kind of false choice between doing good and doing business. And part of the reason I am at Nestle is because I believe that's a false choice. It's not binary. And I actually came to Nestle and was inspired to come to this company actually from an NGO called the One Campaign, which some of you may know does a lot of work on the continent of Africa and really tackles the core issue of extreme poverty. And when I came to Nestle I did get a lot of questions, and people thought, how could you go from doing that to coming to Nestle? But I really have seen it as a continuation of the same journey. And for Nestle, it's really about doing good business and creating value for society. It's about our good food, good life promise and creating value and nourishing people, taking care of communities, taking care of the planet for future generations. And really that's a driving force for all of us who come to work every day at Nestle. But at the same time, we're very humble and we recognize that we do not have all the answers. And if we're going to create a regenerative food system for all, we need to partner in all of the communities where we operate. I mean, we operate in 187 countries. And the way we co-create is very, very different in the US, which is where I come from, versus how we might co-create in Cote d'Ivoire. So it's really exciting to be working with Ashoka. We've been working with Ashoka for several years and working with entrepreneurs like Vital. And, you know, not only is it, I think, helping our business with very pragmatic, practical solutions, but it's also, I think, really infusing some freshness into our culture and the thinking of our own employees. And, you know, we're a 150-year-old business. We know we can't do things the same way. So I think that kind of cultural infusion and lessons are a really important part of the ROI for our company.
Thank you, Lisa. Very interesting to hear also about your personal journey and switching from one sector to another and continuing this trajectory. So, you know, hearing our panelists now, it seems that there's, you know, true win-win collaboration ongoing. I think we've heard very compelling reason why to collaborate with social entrepreneurs from the corporate sector, but also very sort of concrete results also for social entrepreneurs in terms of expanding their impact and expanding their sort of tools and skills to reach out to more people and achieve the change that they want to see in the world. But so it sounds very nice like this, but I'm sure that the social entrepreneurs, you know, the corporate maybe listening to us have many questions and are wondering, how did you meet? What's maybe what would be your advice actually for those actually, willing to start this co-creation journey, and maybe also what to avoid. Let's go maybe to a second round of conversation, sort of extracting actually sort of those lessons. What's essential in the success, and also sort of again sort of what advice would you share with your fellow social entrepreneur or with your fellow corporate executives? Joost, would you like to get us started for this second round of conversation?
Of course, thank you so much for the question. Let me just start with a very honest experience. At the very beginning, I got the request to start collaborating with Philips, and I felt like, oh my goodness, being Dutch, Philips is a major corporate company, and then us being so small, we will be taken over within weeks. They will copy us and they will just do it themselves. That's how it started. And I've been reluctant. At the same time, I think I've been honest. I've been very lucky that we got into this collaboration in the end. So I think the first lesson learned is that there is a lot of synergy between a corporate and a startup or scale-up venture, which is operating in a very complementary business. And what we are doing, we're operating in the field, and that's also what Philips tells me. Philips tells me we are operating in an area where they cannot build a profitable business. At the same time, they also want to use their expertise and know-how that it's available for everyone around the globe. So in the objective of Philips to work with us, there's a lot of synergy between what we are aiming to. And so it's actually being us a small organization without a lot of overhead, because we cannot afford. We have a kind of circle of comfort around us with all kind of expertise, which really goes to all kind of levels. And Annette has been, of course, a great sponsor to Healthy Entrepreneurs. But anytime I have a question in any inquiry, whether it's marketing, whether it's IT, whether it's a call center solution, whether it's an investment question, there's always someone who is willing to come on board and to help us. And I don't know how we as a company could have evolved as where we are today. And so what I've learned, you need to be open, you need to raise your questions, you don't have to be shy. We exist for a reason, as Philips exists for a reason, and we are like equal partners. And I can tell you honestly, we have worked before with kind of funders, NGOs, and other partners at the very early stage. And we have never had such an equal collaboration. And it's fascinating, it's realizing, so any social entrepreneur here, please don't hesitate, get involved with corporates, because there is a lot of synergy, there is a lot of mutual interest. And I can see all our other partners confirming, because this is true. And it's fascinating. I wish every single entrepreneur to have a corporate or two around them as actually a backup plan, actually a support, because without their support, we won't make it. And at the same time, I think we are doing things that inspires a lot of employees at the corporate, not only the direct sponsors, but also a lot of people around us. So I think be yourself, be honest, and be direct and be open, and just get everything out of it, because there is a true win-win. I hope this helps.
Thanks, Joost. That's definitely useful, and I think, as you were saying, relationship starts from the start, from the beginning, in terms of a peer-to-peer relationship. And we hear often talking about the co-creation, images of David, and Goliath, sort of, very small organization with a large one. But I think you can shape this relationship as a peer relationship from the start. So turning to Wietse, how was your own experience? So Joost was starting to say fear, or to mention fear. Did you have the same reaction when you started to talk to IKEA?
No fear. I very much echo Joost's words. It is about shared values, and I think it's about concrete synergies. In our case, of course, IKEA shared a lot of the values on sustainability, and actually IKEA is taking some really radical steps that, once we dig into it more and sort of did the due diligence before, that was just amazing to see. In our case, 2 years ago, we were approached by one of the largest oil companies with a very substantial amount of support they were willing to offer. And they have expertise, but using the ships of sea rangers to be involved in oil exploration is not, even though it would be more sustainable, is not really what is aligned to our values. So I think it's also, you have to be critical, and you have to also be willing to say no, even though this type of support could also make the difference in terms of financial backing and such. You have to, I think, again, what Joost also said, you have to really stay true to who you are as a social entrepreneur. I think two other things that are important is, in the case of IKEA, they, of course, as also explained, already have a social entrepreneurship entity. And when we work with some other businesses, you have to also, I think, as a social entrepreneur, when you sort of arrive, people often perceive, sort of put you in the box of charity. So where actually you want to be talking to the business side of business. So we find that it's often really important to make that very, very clear. And like, we work in the maritime industry. And of course, when we approach maritime companies, they essentially look at us and think, oh, that's a sympathetic project. That's the first thing they think when you actually want to talk business. So with IKEA, that was an amazing match, and they have sort of designed that at the front. So, and secondly, I think it's ultimately also about the personal connection, and it's finding that ambassador. So actually, even though in IKEA, there has been that program, there has been that ability for us to step in, and there was that Della accelerator program co-created with Ashoka. Actually, at the end of the day, it's the individual person that we work with at IKEA that actually now, far beyond the scope of the work, simply continues to work with us, and that then makes a lot of other additional things possible. So I think at the end of the day, it is also about finding that person that's willing to just go the extra mile, for you as a social enterprise, to make the work possible.
Great, thanks, Vitse. And turning to you, Vital. So, what has been your journey, your co-creation journey?
Well, thank you. I mean, you remind me of a story that I would like to share. I remember the first time we were given an office in the Nestle Research Center in Abidjan. It was the first time that the collaborators of that office had ever seen a startup showing up there. And they were wondering, what is he going to do here? And, Nestle is a company that's very traditionally rooted in African trade. Most people don't realize that every mom and pop shop has a Nestle product to sell. So we came with all our great ideas. We, wanted to digitize the whole sector. But, over time, as Lisa mentioned, every market is different. And every perception we might have before coming can be different from one market to another. And that's exactly what happened. In our case, I think what made it occur was that we had common objectives and values business-wise in terms of social impact. That was very clear from the beginning for everybody. So we meant business, but we also meant social impact as a social enterprise. So it was also clear for us when we came that we wanted to make money while creating jobs in the communities with people who were doing business with both entities. So that really helped. And I think if I may have a piece of advice, it will be on 3 points. First, it's about adaptability. As a startup, as a young company trying to deal with a company that's 150 years old, it's tradition. And sometimes as young people, we might think that we know a bit better. All young people we always think we know better. But I think there's always value in listening and in being transparent about one's challenges, and also finding mentors. I personally have a lot of mentors at Nestle. In less than 3 years of collaboration, I have friends from one side, one corner of the continent to the other, to the head of them. It's really people who listen. When you share and you are transparent about your challenges, you will find people who really want to accompany you in your social goals as well as your business goals. And the last piece of advice would be, do not expect a large corporation to function as a startup in terms of the way the finances are managed. For example, for us, we needed to understand that they have the different traditions of planning and things like that. And when in a startup, when we decide, it just happened within a week, So it's really about, making sure that you are really clear with the value you can add to the corporation, and that you know exactly what they can add to you. And when those grounds are clear, I think no matter how long it takes, when you adapt at the end, it might end up in a strong business relationship, as it is in our case right now.
Great, Vital. Yeah, I'm hearing definitely sort of joint objectives. So this is not a random collaboration, but there's a reason for being. So that, you know, co-creation is not an end in itself, but really a mean to achieve more. Joint value, and also, like I say, it's probably a safe space for, you know, for exploring, you know, what it means to join forces. So yeah, to take advantage of the richness of our panel, let's turn now to the corporate side. And let's hear about this co-creation journey, because again, this may not be all rosy or all easy to instill this kind of transformation in the company. Annette, would you like to comment?
Yes, sure. Yeah, I think it has already been said. It's a lot about openness and willingness to listen, being open to another view. And also, I think on the corporate side, not thinking that the big corporate knows it better by definition. I think that's really what is very important. So I mentioned this reverse mentoring session, so where we had invited the social entrepreneurs to shoot at our solutions, and I remember that some of the colleagues were really a bit like, I mean, what is this, and will they tell us how to do our business, right? So that was really out of their comfort zone, let's say. But eventually, I mean, everyone was really super positive about the insights gained and the really good discussion, and as you said, really on peer level. Right? Then all of a sudden, this was a way. This is a social entrepreneur, and we are the big business, because we were talking content, and people were really talking to each other on the same level, because it was a discussion about the subject, and that was really very, very nice to see. And perhaps in terms where we see some challenges sometimes is when we need to engage volunteers, sometimes skilled volunteers on a certain topic over a longer period of time. So that is where we sometimes struggle, because these people do that as volunteers, and so if there is certain workload pressure or certain deadlines from their regular job, then their attention is drawn there, and that is where we sometimes had to bring in then the new people that have to get up to speed, and that is something which remains a challenge, I have to say. Yeah.
Thank you, Annette. Would your advice then be sort of involve the HR, the talent department from the start, if you can, for corporate?
Yeah, I mean, what would be the perfect world is if you can also develop a program on the HR side that it really gives the employees the room to do that work in a defined way. So it could be part of a talent development program, or so if it has really if it's defined and embedded in a certain way in HR. So then that would be the perfect world. Yeah.
Thank you, Annette. And Osa, over to you.
Yeah, I resonate with everything that has been said so far a lot. And I think what I mentioned earlier with the joint theory of change, or whichever way you structure your joint vision and your joint actions, is vital. What maybe has been a learning for us is that we were very invested in this theory of change, and in the first round of co-worker engagement in our first accelerator, maybe we didn't put enough effort in onboarding the co-workers to start with. They came in with a doing business mindset, and this was not something that was totally immediately possible to put into business. It's more like a social innovation and learning lab for us as a corporate. So we adjusted that during the course, and now the second year we have addressed it totally different and been much clear about that bigger picture from the start, so that our coworkers have the right expectations and also see the opportunities for learning. And what we have done, which is like Annette talked about also, I mean, to work with a social entrepreneur is also part of your personal development, both capacity building of your skills and knowledge, but also of your leadership. So it's going to be entrenched in some of the leadership development for young talents. And we've also tried to add another aspect in some of our accelerator programs where we actually match more younger coworker with a little bit more senior coworker in that coaching group, so that it also for us internally is skills development inside of our business. So, and I think that works really well. And we've seen that people are super inspired by that. And what I would say is that we have put a lot of effort into the matching. So in the Dela Ashoka accelerator, there is first a strategy part where you get more like a strategic partner. And then we have created a second, more test and pilot and focus group oriented part where they get more hands-on support, like specific skills and knowledge. And I think it's important to have the right skills and knowledge, but it's also very important to make sure that you match with someone that you know will have a good fit between the personalities. You cannot underestimate. It's like recruitment. You need to match the ones that you can see or hope will give each other energy, and also can make sure that this flame will continue to grow and that they exchange. And as you see in this case, it's also turned into, I believe, more of a friendship afterwards, where you actually get support long after the program have started. So I would put a lot of effort into that. And also I think that we see that we as a hybrid entity, we are kind of the interpreters between the social entrepreneurship world and the business world, because you need to translate sometimes back and forth, because you come at it with different entrances. You probably have the same holistic way, but you talk slightly different and you come from a different angle. So I think our role is also to be the interpreters of the two worlds, so they can meet and that there is no gap between the two.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm looking also at some of the questions from the chat to include them, and maybe a follow-up question, Åsa, for you, or two follow-up questions very quickly. One is, you mentioned onboarding, the importance of onboarding colleagues to set the right expectation, also maybe probably in terms of time horizon and connection to business. So if you you developed a training program. And the second question is that you talk about the importance of matching. What's your key criteria? Is your prime criteria about field of work and sort of connection to the business, or is it more a question of culture?
Can you say the first question again, please?
Oh, it was about onboarding colleagues. If you set
Yes.
up a training program on social innovation.
Yeah, it's more like a module that we add on to the program in the beginning that only the coworkers take part of. So you could say yes, I mean, not all our coworkers are aware of what a social entrepreneur actually is or does. You need to take it from the beginning, and then also, why are we doing this? I think that's really important. And what can you expect? And then, of course, the normal program stuff. So I think we have developed it much further now in the second year. And the other question, sorry.
About the matching criteria, when you talked about the importance of matching.
Well, I mean, there is a lot of course, the skills, especially in the second part. I mean, in the strategic part, we are looking for coworkers that have strategic thinking and have been working with that. But of course, in the second part where it's more hands-on, I mean, it can be down to doing a marketing plan or a franchise system or whatever the topic is where you would need support. Then of course you need to have the skill, but you also, we have actually, it's like a recruitment process. We have one person working only with this, Tina, and she interviews everyone, and you look at how they can contribute, what they think about it, and also having met the social entrepreneur, it's a little bit easier to see who we believe will have a match with whom. So there are some criteria, but I think it's also down to the human aspect of it, the relationship.
Yeah, thank you so much. Lisa, I haven't forgotten you, so we are really keen to hear also, like, you know, from the Nestle point of view, what are those key success factors for co-creation?
Yeah, well, listen, this is the benefit of going last, is that so much has already been said, and I agree with it. I think the point around having a clear objective and that kind of goal clarity up front is absolutely critical. That's what kind of brings us together. But I would also say that something that we have learned from our social entrepreneur partners is that you need to, if it's not working, you need to fail fast. And I think that is a skill that we have learned from partners like Vital and others, where you have a goal, you want to go after it in a big way, but if it's not working, you need to pivot. And that's a skill that has not always come easily to a company like Nestle. And it's frankly a skill that we need to be able to adapt and, you know, kind of future-proof in a way, because the world that we live in is obviously so fluid, and you need to keep agile. And I also want to come back to this point on the relationship. And at Nestle, we always say, you know, we have this foundation of respect. That's one of our core values. And I think that respectful kind of approach to partnering with social entrepreneurs has been a key factor in our success, because we are very humble and clear, where you know, we feel like we may have an expertise and we have a lot to offer with our experience and our operations and our resources, and we know how to scale. But at the same time, we have tremendous respect for our partners who bring innovation, new ideas, and really keep us fresh. So, you know, like everything, it's back to those relationships to really drive success forward.
Yeah, thank you. No, you bringing back to an important sort of element of reality, which is time that co-creation can take, you know, and just was saying, as a social entrepreneur, you know, there's a small team, so time is precious, and obviously also for the company side. So as you were saying, sort of failing fast if it doesn't work, you know, acknowledging that this may not be the right match is also, I think, a very important lesson. So we are getting slowly towards the end of our conversation. I'm going to pick some interesting questions that are coming through our chat. If Dina, I think we have Dina with us, who is actually capturing visually our conversation. So I don't know if this is the right time, Dina, to show us what you've been capturing already. So Dina may need a little bit of time. Okay, so let's take a question or two from the chat first, and then we'll discover the masterpiece of Dina. So there's a question for Philips and IKEA. So how do you track the impact of your social investment? If so, how? So Annette or Osha, I don't know who wants to start.
Yeah, I guess yeah, we track it on two levels. So we track it on the overall program. So the partnership with the Ashoka, which consists of different elements, and so where we see the number of lives improved, or the increased access to care. So that is really on a partnership level, and then also per program element, and I mentioned already the collaborative action part. We have then very specific KPIs defined for the program. So that varies then depending on what the collaboration is about.
Yeah, and from our end, we have created a results framework based on the theory of change, where we measure the social impact, both direct and indirect, and also other KPIs. And you can see them in our annual review, and we try to be transparent and report on it as well.
Thank you. And I think we can now see actually the virtual summary of Dina. Thank you, Dina, for capturing this. I love those keywords: social innovation and core business, magic happens, and the complementarity between the two sides. So thanks. We'll be sharing sort of this summary with all of you. So turning also to another question from the panel, if we have a few more minutes. There was a question about sort of the impact of co-creation for you as an individual. Also, I think maybe for Annette, Osha, and Lisa. So, what does it mean for you as a person?
Yeah, I can go, but then also give Lisa the floor. Yeah, for me, it's just highly energizing. Yeah, enriching. Yeah, learning a lot, and yeah, really. I mean, a lot of enthusiasm around it, and yeah, really happy to have the opportunity to work on this and to work together with the social entrepreneurs and really take also different views. And I think one important thing: don't take anything for granted.
Great. And just building on that, personally, I'm a do-gooder at heart. I've explored that in my career, and I really, I mean, it's really why I came to a company like Nestle, is the power to actually connect these two things, and really help social entrepreneurs kind of through the private sector. So that's something for me personally that's very meaningful, but I also think it's very meaningful for a lot of us who come to work for companies like IKEA, like Philips, and others, because ultimately it's about partnering between the public and the private sector, NGOs, civil society, to find these common solutions. And we know we need each other. And if we can actually tackle some of these really tough problems together, we can achieve great outcomes. So it's the formula for success.
Yeah, to build on that, I don't know what else could be said. For me personally, I am always a fan and always in awe of what we can make when we come together and work together on a shared vision. The collective wisdom is always so much bigger than each and every one of us. It's multiplying it by thousands, and just looking at the challenge from different perspectives will also make you realize that if you just come from one perspective, you might find a solution that creates a lot of unintended consequences. So by having as many different types of stakeholders in the room, you can try to make sure that you do something that takes all of these aspects into account. Because we cannot work in small bits or sectors, because we know that everything is interconnected. We as people are all interconnected, and only together can we create the big change.
Thank you. I think we're reaching the end of our panel. So thank you so much to all of you for sharing your insight, your experience. It's been great conversation. I know that there's more questions that we couldn't have time to answer, but we'll be sharing also some link to some resources that could be useful for you as social entrepreneur or companies. And words that really resonate for me with this conversation is that I think we are reaching slowly a turning point where social innovation is really getting inseparable from the core business. And this is not a nice to have. This is really, you know, a reason to remain cutting edge, to innovate, to connect to the ecosystem, to retain great talent for companies. So definitely a very positive evolution and change. And it's also a great illustration of we need change makers everywhere. You know, of course, social entrepreneurs, but also corporate executive, workers, suppliers, distributors. So we want to see those change makers everywhere. So I just want to, you know, to let you enjoy the rest of the summit. Keep connecting. You can also continue sharing your thoughts and questions through the chat. And yeah, enjoy your rest of the day and the summit. Bye, everyone.